What was the U.S. Home Front? The U.S. Home Front was a system that supported the war effort in many different ways, ranging from volunteer work and submitting to government-managed rationing and price restrictions. What is rationing? Rationing is the limitation of certain products or necessities. Why was rationing necessary? Supplies such as food or gasoline were rationed in order to divert benefits to the war effort. Other materials were rationed as well, such as shoes, meat, tires, gasoline, canned goods, butter, and more. While rationing was important, as were natural resources.
What is a Victory Garden? Victory Garden provided American citizens an opportunity to assist with the war effort. They helped provide food storage. How many Victory Gardens were in the U.S.? There were more than 20 million Victory Gardens planted across the United States.
What was the role of women during World War II? Lots of women began jobs in factories, volunteering for the Red Cross, and some served in the military as well. Their jobs in the military included truck driving, airplane repairing, parachute rigging, radio operating, photo analysis, and testing artillery and aviation. Overall, their role during World War II varied. They had a mixture of responsibilities. How did the role of women change throughout the war? Women took on new and exciting roles. Previously, women were not allowed to work such jobs and would often be looked down upon when suggested.
What were the related government agencies? They were established to handle matters relating to World War II. Some of these government agencies established during World War II were Foreign Economic Administration, Office of War Information, the War Industries Board, and Office of Prime Administration. What did the Office of Prime Administration and the War Production Board do?
The OPA's main responsibility was to place a ceiling on prices for most goods and to limit consumption by rationing. The WPB ensured that each factory receives materials it needed to operate in order to produce the most war goods in the shortest time.
What's the WW campaign? The WW campaign fought for freedom for African Americans at home. The two targets of this campaign were the Nazi German racism abroad and American racism at home.
The genesis of the campaign was a letter sent to the Courier by James G. Thompson, eloquently demanded that African Americans who risked their lives fighting for the United States should be treated as first-class citizens when they return from the battlefields.
What is the Japanese American Internment Executive Order 9066? Executive Order 9066 authorized the military to exclude any or all persons from areas of the United States designated as military areas.
What was the result of Executive Order 9066? The order led to the incarceration of 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. This decision was controversial. What was Korematsu versus U.S.? Korematsu versus U.S. was a legal case regarding the follow-up to the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Korematsu was the son of Japanese immigrants during World War II. During this war, exclusion orders required the relocation of Japanese Americans to camps in the deserts of California. President Roosevelt soon enacted Order 9066, which permitted military forces to prescribe military areas in such places of such extent as he or the appropriate military commander may determine, from which any or all persons may be excluded. Though no specific group was mentioned, it was often applied to the Japanese American population along the West. Matsu was arrested and convicted for violating military order, this being the act of resisting the relocation. After serving a 5-year sentence, he and his family were relocated to a camp in Utah. Why was the Korematsu case significant? This was a very controversial time period, but inevitably upheld the constitutionality of internment camps during World War II.
What was the World War II impact on the U.S. economy? 17 million new civilian jobs were created, industrial productivity increased by 96%, and corporate profits after taxes doubled. Why was the U.S. economy stronger after World War II? Driven by growing consumer demand as well as the continuing expansion of the military-industrial complex as the Cold War ramped up, the United States reached new heights of prosperity in the years after World War II.
How did World War II propaganda affect the course of the war? Through propaganda, Americans promoted war throughout the country. It aimed to break down the enemy's will to fight and supply the Americans with support for the war. It was propaganda that encouraged the purchase of war bonds and other war donation programs. The United States and the Allied countries inevitably won the war. This demonstrates the effectiveness of propaganda in order to support the war effort. What is a war bond? A war bond is a funding technique used in World War II in order to help support the cost of war. It was an investment in not only the country's future but also the individual financial future of the investor. For example, an American would buy a $25 war bond for $18.75. The government would then take that money and use it for planes, ships, uniforms, weapons, medicine, food, and other war necessities. How did war bonds benefit the eventual Allied victory? The supplies provided by the purchases of war bonds inevitably helped the Allied victory for the liberation of Europe. The war bonds helped give soldiers basic supplies in order to survive the brutal fighting. What did World War II propaganda include? World War propaganda often included common stereotypes such as racist or religious discrimination, symbolism, connections with the audience, appeal to emotion, and aggressive calls to action. Often, the propaganda tested the spirits of the American people. One of the most well-known political characters was Rosie the Riveter. She is pictured in common work clothes and a polka dot bandana. Overall, World War II propaganda aimed to enlarge individuals' views and personal responsibility for seize and victory of World War II. What was the Executive Order 8802, and what effect did it have on the U.S.? Executive Order 8802 was an order passed in June of 1941 banning all discriminatory employment practices and war-related work. It also established the Fair Employment Practices Commission, which further enforced said order. It declared, "There shall be no discrimination in the employment of workers in defense industries and government because of race, creed, color, or national origin." What effect did it have on the U.S.? Early 1941, millions of jobs were created as the country prepared for war. Although this order was meant to terminate discrimination, it often encouraged violence against African Americans and different religions. What were Zoot Suit riots? Zoot Suit riots were a series of violent clashes during which mobs of U.S. servicemen, off-duty police officers, and civilians brawled with young Latinos and other minorities in Los Angeles. What caused Zoot Suit riots? The riot began on June 3, 1943, after a group of sailors stated that they had been attacked by a group of Mexican-American Zoot Suiters. On June 4th, a number of uniformed sailors chartered cabs and proceeded to the Mexican-American community seeking out the Zoot Suiters.